Hey Stampers, Kim from stampingimperfection.com. Make sure you click that subscribe button and hit that bell so you get notifications every time I upload a new video. I'm super excited that you're here today because I have been playing with Catherine Pooler's O Snap stamp set and a quick watercolor technique that I hadn't used in a while. So I wanted to share that with you. I made these 3 cards yesterday and I have 4 more that I want to make today. And I'm going to use those re-inkers for the easiest watercolor background possible. And I'm going to make these cards using cover dies also, because cover dies are decadently expensive. So when you purchase them, you want to use them. And there are lots of different techniques that you can do with them. Making beautiful mixed media backgrounds is one of those techniques. A couple of months ago, I shared a video on inlaid die cutting using a couple of these cover dies. So, those are just 2 techniques you can do with them, but they're just gorgeous. So I have a little variety here, and you can see I've used 2 cover dies from the cards that I created yesterday. So that 3rd card is just a simple stamped card. I used Copic markers to color the camera. Everything else came from the stamp set. I did some splatters, stuck it on a card base, and then I have the 2 that I created with the cover die and the re-inker watercolor background. The card on the left is the Starry Night cover die. The card on the right is the Retro Star cover die. And you can see here I watercolored those cameras. And all 3 cards are the same basic layout, but they look very different because I've used different cover dies and I've used different techniques. So it's pretty fun. I have these extra backgrounds that I created because I had extra ink and that does not go to waste. So I took a piece of leftover watercolor cardstock and just kind of swished it around in that extra ink, and this is the result. This particular card, I did a couple extra things. I took my paintbrush and swirled it in the ink, and then I splattered it onto the paper using my paintbrush, and then I dried it with my heat tool until just the edges of those splatters were dry, and then I dabbed up the wet center with my paper towel, and I did that 3 times. Here's an example of one I did just like this, only I probably repeated that dry dab splatter maybe 15 or 20 times on that, and you can see the more you do it, the more beautiful the depth of color you get. Excuse me. These are all mixed media backgrounds. Isn't that pretty? That I've created over the summer watching Vicki Boutin. I always create along with her when I watch one of her lives, and I just love the backgrounds we've created. These are just some of the things I've created over the summer watching those lives, and I just think that will be so beautiful when I, step it up with more techniques on top of it. And that's just a little mini version, and that was with the leftover ink. So, and only 3 layers of the drops, all the same color. I'm using 3 tools here to pick my colors. I love using my color wheel for $2. You can get a lot of assistance about what colors should be combined together. I stick to the tetrads and the triads, the triangles and the rectangles, and I'm just going to use a red, a blue, and a yellow today, and I'm picking colors specifically from this Poppin paper pad. So I'm going to use Limoncello yellow, Aquatini, and Rockin red. Those are all colors in that paper because at least one of my cards will be using a cover die on that paper. The 3rd tool I use is the swatch sheet that I made. This is just a grid I created, which you can download on my blog at stampingimperfection.com. And this goes along with my Stamp and Storage Slimline ink pad holder. So my inks are always in this order, and I love having this because sometimes I just want to look at the colors to see what I want to put together. So I'm going to continue to use the O Snap. I'm going to continue to use the cover dies. You do need to start out with a nice mat under your work because this is a very messy technique. So you want a mat. I have a couple of them. I have this Altenew silicone mat, which I quite like. You can see it's already stained. I have only had it a couple of months, but I'm going to stick with my trusty old Ranger Teflon mat, and you can see this is a very loved mat, but I've had it forever. And I am using paper towels. You can already see I have ink on my hands because I played yesterday. And there's going to be way more ink on my hands by the end of today. So since I'm going to be making a mess, I'm going to make a whole bunch of extra backgrounds so that I have a stack of backgrounds that I can pull out later when I'm in a hurry, and use them for cards. So this is just Strathmore watercolor paper. This is 140-pound paper. I always get it at Michael's. Buy one, get one 50% off. I like this paper. It's a little rougher on one side, and I always use the rougher side. I have this cut down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I'm just going to create some backgrounds. I have my water. And no, that is not clean water. That is the same water I was playing with yesterday. I have my giant round brush, and I'm just going to flood that paper with water. So, and I'm not sure why I'm pulling this out again. I think that I originally pulled out Orange Twist and realized I meant to grab Rockin Red, because I want a true red. Now, I picked Rockin Red, Limoncello Yellow, and Aquatini. Aquatini is not a true blue. It's more of a blue-green. And I could have pulled out like blue suede shoes or Fiesta Blue or something like that. But I don't know. I just love Aquatini. It just fell into my hand. Plus, that's what was in the paper. So I'm putting a lot of water on that background. I want my ink to flow, and it should do exactly what that ink just did. If you have enough water, that's what it's going to do. So I just put a couple drops of the Rockin Red, a couple drops of the yellow, which I'm putting next to the Rockin Red, hoping to get some orange. Then I'm going to put the Aquatini on, and I'm hoping to get some purple there. And I'm squirting this, and I wish I had squirted this a little bit more. I'm trying to like squirt it right into where that intense color landed in the center. So I took my paintbrush, and I'm just kind of moving the ink around and dabbing more water on so it moves and flows a little bit. I wish I had not done this because I love it when the ink just does what it wants to on the water. I wish I just squirted more water, because you can see in that bottom right hand corner I get a lot of intense color down there. So I dried off my brush and just dabbed off some of the ink, and I'm dabbing off where it all mixed together on my mat. And it looks like it's black, but that's going to dry a really pretty purple. So that is actually going to be really pretty when it's dry. I just want to get those edges, and then I'm going to let this dry on its own. Before I do that, I'm going to dab off where the ink is pooling on the edges. If you let it dry like that, you'll get some harsh lines on the edges. Sometimes I like that. Today I don't really want that. So I dabbed that up. Now this ink isn't going to go to waste. I'm going to pull out some, I have these little square scraps, and I'm just going to run it through my ink a few times till the whole thing is covered and I like the way it looks. And I'll dab the edges of that and let those dry, and then pull those out for backgrounds. I can die cut the front of a card with a circle and then pop that behind it, and I'll have a beautiful card. The second background I was playing with, I did the same thing. This time I used my big flat brush to put water on the card, and I really like that big flat brush. And I also spritzed it more. You see how much that spread? Like, it just really spreads beautifully when you have enough water on there. So I'm using the Aquatini and the Limoncello Yellow and really spritzing it so that the ink and the water do all the work and I don't do any. So I'll pick it up and let it run down to the bottom, and I'll slide it through the extra ink on the mat to get the edges covered. And again, I'll dab off the edges, and I'm going to just put that on my board to let it dry. I really like that. I think that looks so pretty. You could do really beautiful sunset backgrounds and, just random colors that you love together. Be careful, because some colors don't mix well. They don't play well together. And you get brown. But if you're doing a rock background or mountains, that works perfectly. Like purple and yellow are good examples. So I'm just like swishing another piece in that ink. And now this is just basically turned to a yellowy green color, and I quite like it. And you could like make sure you get more color on one side than the other, and you get kind of an ombre effect. I'm going to drop a little bit more Aquatini on there and spritz it and let that flow around, dab the edges, and let that dry. And I'll pull that out later because I just love the Aquatini color. Now I wanted to show you this technique. So I pulled out that little tiny square that I had created before, just splattering on that green Now I'm going to pull out my heat tool, and pardon me for reaching in front of you. I had to plug in my heat tool, but now you can see why all my shirts have watercolor stains on them or paint stains, because I don't always paint with dye inks, which are water-based inks. So I'm heating this up. I'm not baking this. I'm just heating it up till the edges of those drops dry, and I'll show you what I mean in just a minute. Then I'll dab the wet parts up. Can you see the edges are dry there? I'll dab the rest of that up with my paper towel. And look at the effect, it's so pretty. And then if I do lots of different layers in lots of different colors, and even if I use the same color over and over and over, because it's dry before I put the next layer on, they layer on top of each other. If that had been still wet, then that would be a problem. They would blend together. So while those were drying, I did all my die cutting and I did some stamping. So I've got a bunch of things to show you. Here's that first background I made, and then you can see the purple, and it's, it's a little muddy on the bottom, but once I put that pretty floral burst cover die on there, you don't even notice. And I think all I'm going to do is just put one little camera stamp on there and one little sentiment. I'll just cut one of those smile sentiments out, and that will be that. Then this is the second background I made, and again, so simple. I just die cut out a stitch circle on that front panel. I did trim that down to 5 1/4 by 4 inches. And then this is another one of the panels I was just sopping up extra ink, and I cut this down to fit behind that die cut. That is a die cut from the Crafter's Essential die set from Cat Scrappiness. I'm going to use 3 different cameras on that. Again, one that I had left over from yesterday. I die cut that Poppin patterned paper, and I'm going to just use one camera and a sentiment. Same layout I've been using. So here are the 2 little panels that I made, and I just did, you can see I did a lot of layers on that one, but that looks like confetti once you put it behind that circle. And what a quick way to have a background for a card. The second one I just did plain water. I spritzed it with plain water and dabbed it with the paper towel, and I got that beautiful background. This is also another piece of that Poppin paper, but the background wasn't quite big enough for underneath it, so I'll have some extra stuff here for cards later. And again, super simple, just doing all the same layouts. So, one stamp set goes a long way. So let me just share with you, I already showed you the first 3 cards. This one was just made with a card sketch with some splatters and Copic coloring and some random watercoloring and the stamp set. And these were made with that ink background. This one had a blue and a green. This one had an orange and a yellow, and I think a red, orange, red, and yellow. So it was, and I watercolored those 2 cameras. Then I just did random things with the rest of them. So this one I made with that die from the Crafter's Essentials kit, and I just used markers to kind of give myself a rainbow effect across the 3 cameras, and I used the little smile stamp, and I really liked it. And I put some fun, these are Studio Katia Majestic sequins. I like them because they're super sparkly. So Studio Katia has beautiful beautiful sequins. These are also Studio Katia. I think they're iridescent. And this one I just put a little yellow on the inside where the lens and the flash might be, just for a little bit of color to pull it in, but I just really liked it mostly black and white. And this one I just left black and white because there was so much color on the card. I'm not sure what color I would have made that camera. I just put a little bit of the Aquatini color in the center. And again, a little, like, these are all essentially similar layouts except for the one with the 3. And this, again, same layout. You can see the same layout on all of these cards. So I haven't even, there's so many possibilities when you start playing with the layouts of the cards. Because imagine a background, just a black and white background, or a very colorful background with these stamps. I haven't even hit the tip of the iceberg with what I can do with this stamp set, but I've got all of these and I had so much fun playing with it. And it's always fun to revisit a technique that you haven't done in a while. And that is the easiest technique you can do. And I still have 3 backgrounds I haven't even put on cards yet, and some other cameras and sentiments that I've got stamped and cut out. So I still got more to play with, and you know, one stamp set can go a long way, along with some of the other tools that you have sitting around your craft room. I know you have circle dies, you probably have a couple cover dies, maybe you have some random dies like this that you hardly ever use, or maybe you don't have any dies at all and you just want to keep it simple. You know, just keep it simple. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you feel inspired to try this and get a little messy. And you know what works really well to take dye inks off your hands is shampoo. That's my special tip for the day. So thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a like and share with your friends. And make sure you subscribe and stop by my blog at stampingandreflection.com. Be well, my friends. Have a great day.